If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stat Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week it's Toby Phillips from the Property Franchise Group. We'll come to Toby in a second. Why should you watch this show? Well, the British are obsessed with the property market. Whenever you see the information from the Land Registry being published, almost guarantee it'll be front page news in the Times or Telegraph. Whenever the Halifax and Nationwide publish something, it's always front page news. The British are obsessed with the property market. The issue is that the Land Registry is looking at data and house prices from sales that took place 8, 9, 10 months ago. The Nationwide and Halifax are looking at sales that took place 2 or 3 months ago. Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at sales that took place last week. So if you want to know the inside track on the property market, this show is for you. The show is approximately 1 hour long. The first half is looking at the UK property market with Toby. Well, as I said, we'll come to Toby in a second. And then the second half is that we focus on a town or a city and really deep dive and have a look at what's happening in that particular property market, but specifically looking at who is the best estate and letting agent in that town. This week, that town is on Chesterfield. If you're from Chesterfield, you're going to want to be all over that. However, if you're not from Chesterfield, you might ignore it. But what I would say is this. If you are an agent that's suffering from other agents who overvalue or do cheat fees, and you're struggling to prove your worth and prove how good you are compared to others, then we're going to be using a piece of kit which is truly amazing and can prove independently, third party, whether what you say can be backed up with cold, hard facts. Anyway, let me introduce you to Toby Phillips. Many of you know he's a regular on the show, but for those of you not, Toby Phillips is a senior director for the Property Franchise Group, and he's responsible for Martin & Co, CJ Hole, Parker's, Ellis & Co, Country Properties and Mullocks. So Toby's been in the game an awful long time, and what he doesn't know about estate and letting agency ain't worth knowing. Great to have you on board this week, Toby.
Thank you, Chris. Really, really good to be back. Good area to look at today in sunny Chesterfield. So,
do you have any connection? Do you know the area particularly well, or
I've actually got some family up there. It's an area we cover via Martin & Co, and certainly from one of our main brands in Hunters as well, with my colleague Rob Smith. But again, it's a big opportunity area, lots of chimney pots, lots of affordability, and I'm sure without even looking at the graphs, you've sent me some big competition with the agency there for what will be where you can amass a fairly big market share fairly quickly, actually, in those sort of areas.
Yeah, it's an interesting town. For anyone that doesn't know the geography, it's in it's just south of Sheffield and just north of Derby. It is a very nice town and very famous for its church spire. There you go. And if you don't know that, go and Google it. And if you really want to smile, find out the joke of why it is that way. But anyway, we're not on that sort of kind of show, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, let us go and have a look at the first part of the show. It's where we go and look at the stats. So if anyone that's not watched the show before, what happens is this. I just roll off the numbers, and then Toby comes in and gives us his thoughts. Then we move to the next stat, so on and so forth. And general banter normally takes place. It depends on what sort of mood Toby's in this week, to whether we get the soapboxes or not. But as I said, soapboxes are certainly encouraged for this particular part of the show. So let's bring the stats back. I do apologise. There we go. Right. Okay. So this week in the UK, we've put on 35,852. This is week 37. Can you believe week 37? God, wow. That's just getting quick. It's getting on a bit too quickly for my liking. Hold on a second, just to give you an idea. Last week the listings 37.4. Week before that 36.6. Just bring that back to the stats. Hold on a second. Here we go. Good stuff. Right. So you should be able to see the graph again. The average price of a property that's come onto the market is £454,000. Year to date, we are on 1.306 million, which is 3.1% ahead of last year at 2.66 million and 10.7% ahead of the 9-year average. This particular graph probably is the most important graph here, and this shows us the week on week. The white line is 25, the blue line is 24, yellow 23, green 19, turquoise 18, and pink 17. And you will see here that we had what happens, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who have not watched the show before, we always have a dip on the bank holidays. So there's your 3 dips where you had the Easter and the 2 May bank holidays. There is the August bank holiday, and she dips up. And now, as you can see here, then in terms of listings, we can pretty much judge every single week what that is, because the property market does follow a very cyclical patterns. Okay, Rob, listings, over to you.
So again, when you look at the listings, Chris, what's interesting is the pattern is very, very much following the 2018 pattern, which is interesting because when you look at it, you think to yourself, we're gathering a lot of stock. It'll be very interesting to look on the back of the sales penetration rate, because 18 was one of those years not as good as 21. So again, when you're looking at this, you're thinking to yourself, 19 was a lot lower. So, but what's more interesting that is where this price is holding, Chris. So when you look at the prices that we're being listing for, and if you just flick onto the next slide, if you bring the prices back up slightly, it's a very interesting observation here. So 454 was the average listing price. If we look at this is a bounce back from 2022. When you look at how that market's risen, so it's one of these marketplaces where more properties being listed, the prices are holding. And it'd be very, very interesting now to look at the sale agreed numbers.
Well, here we are.
It strikes to me a big, healthy market at the moment.
Okay, so again, we just go where the conversation goes, ladies and gentlemen. What we've got here is going back to January 2023. The red line is the average price of a property coming onto the market. And the turquoise line is the average asking price of a property when it goes sale agreed. Some people will say you don't know what its sale agreed price is, but what we do know through extensive research from Hamptons is, excluding the COVID years, that's always, without question, always between 98 and 99% of the original asking price. And I think that's really important nationally. Yes. London is higher, by the way, but Norman nationally. So therefore, again, here's another, if you need an excuse of why should you bring your price down, because normally the price that gets achieved is between 98 and 99 of the asking price of when it goes sold. Now, you'll notice on this graph here, there's some yellow parts, and those yellow parts are that is the effect of the London market. What happens, ladies and gentlemen, those that regularly watch the show know this, but every single first 2 weeks in September, the London market goes to sleep in the summer, unlike the rest of the UK. But when she comes back and all these £1 million terraced houses get put on the market, look at the effect. That's those big yellows. So again, don't you just love the cyclical nature of the UK property market? That, you know, it's like a clock. It's like clockwork. You know exactly. You could actually draw that line in now, and we could all go home, couldn't we?
And if you went back to 0122, 0121, etc., that graph would look no different in those particular pinch points, Chris.
Indeed. Again, these are just we like to show these graphs, but the percentage difference. 25.7. We will get onto the sales figures. Obviously, you've seen a quick sneak peek of them, ladies and gentlemen. But the average in the last 9 years is 16 or 17%. But it always jumps up in these couple of weeks. So nothing particularly to concern ourselves about or worry about. Because people say, "Oh my God, these properties come." You know, is that saying that they come on at 450 and they sell for 360? No, they don't. Lower price properties have a higher percentage actually end up selling, which brings the average down. Let's move on to price reductions. 26,230, which and the average price of a property coming down is 415,000. Let's just, before we look at this graph, let's just remind ourselves what stock levels are at. And here's stock levels. Presently setting at £736,000. So what will happen now is that stock levels will I mean, last year we had a flurry of listings. Again, let's just remind ourselves on that. There you can see here that the blue line here, that listings were slightly higher. That's this line here, back end of last year. Again, we all seem to forget this, don't we, Toby?
Very much so. What I don't think we're going to see this year, Chris, is where we've seen that spike, there was a very heavy decline moving forward. I think the listed market's got a bit more legs in it this year. So I think that people, bit uncertainty out there, economically, politically, whatever it may be. But I don't think the dropping listings is going to be anywhere near as sharp. So I still think you can stock the shelves still quite late into the year this year.
Good stuff. But now, what is particularly interesting, which we highlighted last week, is this particular graph. Okay, so the number of reductions reduce, but probably the most important statistic is what percentage of the homes you have on the market do you reduce? And okay, I fully understand, Toby, that in December, which is here, which is here, and which is here, you're going to have a lower month of reductions. And again, I was with your partner in crime, Rob Smith, who also is a senior director for Property Franchise Group, working with the Whitegates and Northwoods brands, and another one that I can't remember, and he'll shoot me for it. Can you help me out on that one?
Hunters.
Hunters, yes, there you
Small one, couple of branches.
go. Yeah. Yeah, wow. Apologies to Hunters franchisees. But this is the bit that scares me, Rob, and I'd like your opinion on this, okay? So this particular, as I said, graph measures price reductions as a percentage of sales stock. Sales stock does reduce, but I would certainly hope that the same percentage of homes are being reduced, excluding December. But why do estate agents fall off the wagon in October and November doing price reductions? Because look, okay, that's December, it's at 6%. There's December at 7%. But you have October and November, you have definitely have 3 months where the percentage of properties you have on your books. Remember, sales are slowing up because it's on the way up to Christmas. You'd think you'd be doing more reductions ready for the new year. Why? Why are we so bad at reducing houses in Q4?
Very interesting. I think the focus in Q4, for whatever reason, Chris, factually, but also out there, comes away from it. What we're looking forward to doing, we're trying to maximise as many exchanges in the pot as we can in Q4. Q4 is all about getting your pipeline turned, getting that year suppressed. What's interesting though is obviously December's become a month where you want to get your showroom as polished as it can be. So that's really where you are looking at your vendor stock. You're probably not reducing things because Christmas trees are up, tinsel's up, balls are up. But actually what you are doing is you are agreeing with the vendor that you're going to relaunch that on Boxing Day or in between Christmas and New Year at a new price with a new set of photographs, etc. So I think that the focus isn't on reductions until much later. And then we see the impact of those efforts more across the Christmas break and then very much into January, Chris.
Okay, but then I'm going to have to pick you up on that one because if you were reducing it in December, then those spikes would be high because it includes the December spike.
But you're not listing the prices. You're not listing the prices right until the beginning of.
Okay, if you go for Jan. Okay, but then the next thing is why October and November?
Do you know what, Chris? It's a really good question. The only answer I've got for you is the focus that we have traditionally agency October and November is
get the pipeline through.
Get the pipeline through, get the exchanges through, get your bonuses, get your numbers here. And that's, whilst it might be a very sort of flippant excuse, that probably is 9 times out of 10 the reason, Chris.
Reason. Yeah, we don't use the word excuses. We use reasons in this show. But again, if we're all standing on our soapbox here, I think it's pretty fair to say is that because we're too focused on getting the money in the till for Q4, surely by getting the price reductions in, let's just come back to this.
You're right.
That drop here was August. That's August. Then
Do you
we
know
got
what, Chris,
and then September and October, and we're dropping here. It's almost like we forget to reduce prices from
you're
August
absolutely
onwards.
right. And
And
as a
if we got the prices right, we could get them SSTC, which means like because every agent complains that Q1's rubbish. No wonder Q1's rubbish.
Chris, I couldn't disagree with you. That the part that I would say there as an owner, as a working in the corporate for a number of years, now a franchisor, you're right. But my focus hitting October, you're hitting the dial, you're saying now we have 8 weeks technically to Christmas, and we've got to make sure we've got all of our predictions right. And we need to hammer as much as we can. Now, interestingly, this work on stock reductions, rephotographs, relaunching, whether it might be featured agents, will be let's hold that property and let's relaunch it into the new year marketplace. So that thought process, though, I have to say, probably doesn't come as early as it should, and certainly doesn't happen in October. But it also, as I'm seeing now, doesn't happen in November. I think it comes later on. When we get to Christmas, we start saying, right, let's get our stock sorted out for the January sales.
Good. Right. Let's move on. Sales. Okay, so the doom and monger merchants were, everything's end of the world in the newspapers. Sorry to down, ladies and gentlemen.
It's all right.
25,315. I'll just remind you the other last week. 25.5 the week before, 24.8 the week before, 21.4, 25.2, 25, 25, and then I think back in August, late July, 26.9. So it's not bad. The average price of a property selling 361. We've already looked at that in that previous graph a few minutes ago. Cumulative sales to date, gross sales 943,000, which is 6.2% ahead of last year and 13.6% ahead of 17, 18 and 19. And just to give you an idea, the average of 17, 18 and 19 is 830. So therefore, whilst 13.6 doesn't sound a lot, well, certainly 113,000 sales is a lot.
It's a lot.
Is a lot. Yeah. Okay. We'll be looking at fall throughs in a second. I mean, just to give you an idea, listings compared to 17, 18 and 19, listings are 10% ahead. Gross sales are 13.6% ahead and sales are 10.1, net sales 10.1%. So again,
very, very positive marketplace.
It is, but again, there's a number of agents where if the market's really good, they point the finger at themselves, and if the market's bad, they blame the market. What you tend to find is that if you're outperforming those numbers, you're doing better. If you're doing those numbers, you're just following the tide. I will not apologize for being hard on that one. Right, okay, here's the graph here. And again, there's the gross sales. You can see there the 24 figures that we did have a nice uplift in sales, which again, they reached up to the 27 mark, and we are presently at 25. Again, it looks quite, there's only a couple of grand there because the chart only starts at 10, but we like to, make it look a bit more fresher. Yes, just doing all right, mate, aren't we?
Well, look, what that clearly tells you, though, Chris, is in 19 we saw that spike on instructions. In 19, we're going to be nowhere near. We're going to be light years ahead of the sales number, light years ahead of where that is. So what we are doing is we're taking on slightly less, but actually we're going to sell a hell of a lot more, and the house price is better than it was in 19. 851 plays 943. So for me, what we're going to see is we're going to see more sales. The listings will be slightly less, but I think they will continue slightly longer.
Okay, let's move on. Just
a real good indication there.
Okay, this is a graph for you data geeks out there. The red line is the percentage of sales agreed expressed as a percentage of listings. So if you had 1,000 listings and you had 800 sales, 800 expressed as a percentage of 1,000 is 80%. So it would be at 80% there. Again, it's just important. So the blue lines are just listings, and the red line is, as I said, listings as a percentage, sales as a percentage of listings. So you can see here that yes, we were selling over 100% in terms of, because remember, the standalone months. but 80%, that's not bad at all. Not bad at all.
And
Right.
look, Chris, as well, where we're seeing those big sort of volcanic spikes in there, you've got coming out of COVID, you've got Boris bounces, you've got stamp duty holidays. It's a little bit artificial. What we should be looking at is July 19 versus July 24. How does that look? If you look at where it is today, you're probably in a good comparison with the 19 market. I'd kind of forget 21 and 20 on here.
Yeah, yeah. This is also another graph which I think works really, really well. And this is what percentage of your sales stock did you sell? This is always 1 month in arrears, so therefore we are looking at August here. And in August, 14.54% of properties on agents' books went sold, sale agreed. And again, I say this on most shows, is look at the cyclical nature. The shape of the graph is always the same: up, Easter wobble, down again, bit up again for so she'll knock again, up again, and then she'll go down again. I just love the cyclical nature of the UK property market. But again, ladies and gentlemen, are you selling more than 14.54% of your stock?
Very interesting stat, Chris. I used to get targeted at 12%
Yeah.
for a bonus back in 91. 12%, if I got to 12%, would have a street party. If I got to 14.54, I would be in a different universe. So 12%, always the marker. You can see where that's moved to now.
Oh, but interestingly, whereabouts were you based?
South London.
So therefore, I would actually say that 12% in London is harder to get than 12% nationally.
Yeah, very much. But again, I think that the market I was in London isn't the market you see today. But in terms of where people want to live and house price, but 12% across the industry, Chris, was you're doing okay. That's okay. So that for me is a decent number.
Well,
You know, it's a bit of an old timer.
We are going to be looking at this, but withdrawal rates are really high. Okay, we will look at that in a second. We've done these graphs already. Let's move on. Okay, price reduction, so fall throughs, 6,328, which is exactly so. Fall throughs as a percentage of sales. So the number of fall throughs this week, which was 6,328, and the number of sale agreeds, 25,315. So rounded, that is a 25%. There's the fall through rate as a percentage. That's the number of fall throughs with the red line, trend line slightly upwards. But again, let's just remember, ladies and gentlemen, take that with a pinch of salt because the number of sales is higher. We'll be coming on to the number of sales in estate agents' pipelines in a second. I think this is a more important graph. This shows you what percentage of your sales pipeline did you fall through. Again, a month in arrears, and in August, 5%. So 5% of estate agents' sales pipeline fell through in August. Again, how you compare that. It's just nice to see there, Rob, that the general trend is in a downward direction, isn't it? So that's nice. You know, nothing that is a bit like a super tanker. It takes a while for it to move, but yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it's in line. That's reassuring, Chris.
And again, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, the cyclical nature of the UK property market is what tends to happen is this: it just everything you can almost track. You can track the line. It just whether it's a high or it's just a tide. It just moves up and down. Okay. Net sales. We're on 18,000. We'll call that 19,000 between mates. The year to date, 719,000, which is 5.2%. It says 5.1 there. Apologies. 5.2% ahead of 24 and 10.1% ahead of 17, 18, and 19. Again, that's just the white line there. Now we're introducing 20 and 21, which are the COVID years, just as an example. And again, the dips at Easter and May bank holidays, and there's the dips for August bank holiday. So again, just to give you an idea, Rob, the sales agreed last year, which was in week 37, was 19,284. Well, we've got it there actually, which is not that bad. Considering what's going on in the world and the newspapers and the doom and gloom merchants and the fact that everyone's saying that everyone's putting things on hold for Rachel Reeves, they're not. Yeah, there's some.
Look, because you're ahead of 22, ahead of 23, you're 1,000 down on 21. If you'd have given me that figure at the start of the year, I'd have took it.
Too right. See, remember, ladies and gentlemen, bad news sells newspapers. So your job with vendors is to tell them exactly what's happening. And what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is this: is that these graphs are available to download. If you're on YouTube, you can go, as I said, to YouTube on this actual video. Scroll down. There's a little download link. I ask that you don't publish it on social media because my daytime job is I'm a property economist, property market economist, and some of my clients use these national graphs. I write them local content, but some of them use these national graphs to publish on their own. So just wouldn't be fair for you to use them. But I'm happy for you to use them at appointments. Why do you think estate agents aren't very good at talking about property stats and property market, Rob?
Um, I think it depends on, it's an individual thing, Chris. I think when you're out on an appointment, I think for me, there's very different types. There's some that will absolutely rely and wax lyrical and use the stats as a really good justification point to make a point. But more commonly, us as agents, we are less analytical than this, and we are looking to build rapport with the customer. We're looking to get on like-minded, and actually, we want to make sure the customer's more informed these days. So actually, a lot of listers that I go out with are far more looking at the impression, looking at the relationship, looking at the bespoke way we can market this, by actually coming to an opinion where the vendor 9 times out of 10 has a very clear indication of their price. So stats are used, they are used, but they're probably used by the younger generation, if I may be as bold, Chris. I think for me, it's more, the way I was brought up and anyone sort of over a certain age, we look at the stats, we might pick one or two out, but we're really going on about brand. We're talking about relationship. We're talking about the agreement with the vendor, knowing the vendor has as much access as we want to do it. So I think stats for me are far more, they're underused, but they're probably used very much by potentially people a bit younger.
Because I find it fascinating that there's a survey by the Property Academy, and they get published at EA Masters every year, and without fail, over 1 in 3 people chose their estate agent based on the agent's local property market knowledge. And surely the best thing to do in your social media is to talk about the local property market. Anyway, what do I know?
It doesn't make, even when I'm saying it to you, Chris, it doesn't make a lot of sense. That's just how it is. And I think we
Yeah,
are becoming more informed. We are using this more, but we'll talk from experience and we'll tell stories about the local property market to show our experience rather than relying on fact.
yeah, and again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're an estate agent and you understand, I mean, again, they're not going to be watching the show because it's too statty. But those of you who are still watching the show, don't worry, mate. No one watches the show anyway. But if you are still watching the show, thank you. But remember, stand out from the crowd by your local property market knowledge. People are wanting a local expert, an expert on the property.
And I guarantee you, Chris, there will be more vendors now in the world we live in where these stats will win that instruction, where they've got the choice of one or two agents offering the same fee, similar price, similar service. The stats will, but this presented to the right vendor, without question, will win you more instructions.
which is all about. And ladies and gentlemen, I've got no issue with you downloading these and use them on your iPads. Anyway, right, let's move on. So the red line is the number of exchanges, and the yellow line is the number of withdrawals. Okay. The percentage, the chances of selling. So again, this is data for August. And of the properties that left estate agents' books, 55.1% of them were exchanged, and the other 44.9 withdrew unsold. So again, big numbers there. We showed this last week, but basically the property, if you want to know what's going to happen to the land registry figures, that yellow line is 5 months in advance, whatever will happen to the land registry. So again, over the next 2 or 3 months, the next 4 or 5 months, the land registry will dip slightly. So again, if you want to be knowing what's happening in the market, this is for you. Number of properties to sell, we've already shown you this, ladies and gentlemen, 736,000, remembering that it was 1.3 million back in 2008, so don't panic, it's gone up from there. number of properties in agents pipeline. And you said before the show that a lot of your agents have big pipelines. It's getting them through. We talked about this many times. Instructing solicitors before on listing and reservation agreements. Do you have any strong opinions on those?
For me, Chris, that's setting up a big war chest for Q4. We're well into September, so we're setting up that Q4. 510 in the pipeline, biggest we've seen now in 3 years. The average fee within that pipeline, based upon that high house price, will also be significantly larger than we've seen over the last few years. So for me, you'd be sitting there now, and this probably comes back to our argument about why we're not reducing properties. There's a huge prize this year. That war chest is huge. You could end this year on a big number because you're coming in. All you've got to do is make sure that when you open up on January the 1st, your pipeline figure starts at a profitable value.
And that's it. We're very short-termism, and yes, you've got to get the money in, but we're not. We've also got to think of the medium term, which is Q1.
But there's going to be some agents with record finishes this year. So if you've done your budgets, and obviously your last 6 months budget's always bigger than your first half budget. Whether it's 49.51 or 55.45, however you've done it, the end of this year should be an absolute cracker looking at those numbers.
Still doesn't. We also need to be getting the price, like we said earlier in the show, getting the price reductions down so we can get them sold, so we can have a decent Q1. Anyway, let's move on. Old record. Average monthly rents regionally. That's a good one. Again, I just love the fact is here we go. Look, this is private rent since 2016. Inflation has been 38%. So actually in London, in outer London, and also inner London, rents in London are 17.8% cheaper in real terms after inflation. Amazing. You wouldn't think that, would you?
No, not at all. That's a real surprise, Chris.
And again, look, this is the reason why everyone else was pretty flat line and then took off. London dropped because of the exodus.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you were to measure rents from here, which is about 2.2 up to where it got up to 3.4, that's been a 50% increase. But we're measuring it from the red line, which is 2016. So we get, it's outer London, a little bit similar, but not hugely. So just take it with a pinch of salt. There are some areas which obviously gone over, which is the northwest, but Scotland. But yeah, people are amazed by that. Here's another graph which I think is important. The blue line shows you the number of properties coming on the market for rent in all the portals. The yellow line shows the average rent. Now, let's just remind ourselves here, the number of private rental properties today is higher than it was in 2020, and it was high, and in 2020 it was higher than it was in 17. The number of rental properties is continuing to grow. It's not growing up very much compared to the teens, but it is still growing. And what's happening, ladies and gentlemen, is this: a lot of landlords are selling between themselves, and let's not forget the biggest problem with estate agent lettings, biggest issue that lettings have is not the renters' rights bill, it's open rent. And we will be looking at that in Chesterfield. But just to give you an idea, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to blow your mind. In the last 2 years, open rent take on average around 18% of them, 18 to 19% nationally of all the rental properties in the UK, of which half of them were previously on the market, 51.2 by the way, 51.2% of private rental homes in the last 2 years were previously on the market with high street agents. Landlords have swapped them, not sold, they've swapped. You're not giving them value. Why are we really rubbish as letting agents improving our value, Toby?
It's a very interesting debate, and I think one that will probably continue with Chris for many, many years, but more importantly, probably in Chesterfield in the next section, because I think that will probably illuminate that. But it's a debate that we've probably been having for many, many years, and will have for many years to come, Chris.
I mean, if you were stood up at the TPFG conference and basically someone says, right then, you've got a minute. How do we beat open rent? What would you say?
Certainly, number one, the formula for beating them, um, it's having the right dynamic, the right people in the right place to do it, Chris. How would you beat open rate right here, right now on this stat show? I couldn't offer you a decent answer. What I would have to do though is get standing up at the conference. We'd need a real plan and a lot of people to stand up and actually carry it out, Chris. So right here, right now, couldn't tell you. Being absolutely transparently honest, but I do know there are enough decent agents within, for example, TPFG together would be able to topple them.
Well, I'm going to take that challenge. This is what I would do. Number one, I'd get my property managers to actually be talking to the landlords and actually proving value, sitting them down about their portfolio, doing some portfolio management, because all we do is ring up them with problems to prove our work, do some property reviews, do like a right, you bought them for this, what's your outcome, all that sort of stuff. And what I would also be doing is creating content that attracts landlords to your agency. I'd be using the renters' rights bills with open evenings to drag people in, get the details, and if you can't tickle them and build a relationship, then you're in the wrong game. Anyway,
I think you're skimming the surface, Chris, as well. I think it's far deeper than that. I think that's good, all good practice, but actually it needs a very, very organised consensus prolonged campaign.
Okay, right, okay. If I had a choice between talking about the property market and looking after my existing landlords, it's always looking after my existing landlords, and I would be doing some heavy portfolio management on them.
I wouldn't be just doing that though.
Sorry?
I wouldn't be just putting my eggs on that one basket.
No, but if I had, there's lots of things you can do.
Yeah.
There is, and let's be honest, what I've just said isn't going to be fixed. You can't just do that quickly. That's big seismic.
Exactly. There's a number of things you have to get right. That for me is what you do, but you have to be at degree level standard.
I mean,
on a number of things.
I find it fascinating that people will pay absolutely like 1.5 times gross turnover for a portfolio, but we only pay our property managers minimum wage.
I would disagree. We now don't.
Go on.
If I could get a property manager minimum wage, let me know. I'll take them on. So property managers now are earning, some very very good money, way above minimum wage, and I'll happily talk on that. Do I think property manager? I think that's one of the most important roles in the branch. I think the investment I would say to any of my franchisees is to invest in property managers who are proactive, who are going to also add value to the existing portfolio. But in terms of, I think now as an industry, and I can only comment on the part I look after, we are paying above minimum wage because it's recognised how important they are. Are they, I think the question, Chris, I would put back, are they incentivised enough to really go the extra mile? Now, that's a different conversation. But if you haven't got decent property managers, you are in trouble. That's the biggest investment that we could possibly need. But coming back to the open rate conversation, that is one of 8 different things that needs to be happening.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You can see why we invite such awesomeness as Toby Phillips on the show. Right, okay, that's the end of the first part of the show. So let us now go to Chesterfield, where we'll analyse who is the best estate letting agent in that beautiful town in Derbyshire. Here we go. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we're using a piece of software called Insight. Insight comes from the firm called 20EA. 20EA have lots of different platforms. This is Insight. Insight is a bit like Rightmove Plus on steroids, but it looks back in the last 5 years plus the year we're in, which means you get a lot more data, and it has a lot more metrics that you can compare and contrast with. It's absolutely amazing. So without further ado, let's go and have a look. Okay. So for Chesterfield, we are looking at the postcode districts of S40, S41 and S42. I appreciate there's some little villages. There's some other little postcodes on the really outskirts, but we're just looking at core Chesterfield. Okay. So looking at between the 1st and the 1st 2020 and the 21st of September. We will look at the upper quartile and we will look at the last 12 months separately because there might be some new players coming in. So here, without further ado, Toby, just jump in whenever you see something.
Of course.
Okay, so
So sorry, Chris, just our range we've got from 2020 to 2025, yeah?
yeah, here it just says here. So again,
Perfect.
ladies and gentlemen, those of you, this piece of software is available. There is a free version if you apply for it from 20EA that only looks at the last 3 months. Then there is
That's really good.
Okay, there's a package that you can buy for the cost of probably a decent takeaway, not a takeaway, like a meal at Prezzo or something. 4 of you, that's what this would cost you for a month, and it can have up to 10 postcodes. Please don't mention my name. I'm not on commission. I'm just telling you, it's my personal opinion. It's done good value for money, and I'm not.
Is that the same in Grantham, Chris? Is that dinner in Grantham you'd get for the same price, or
I don't know where
more expensive, or?
Well, again, I mean, Prezzo's pretty much. I mean, I'm a big fan of Prezzo, but what I'm saying is this. But okay, splitting hairs. For God's sake, tell you what. For the cost of a meal of 4 people at Prezzo, where you're not going stupid, you are going to get this for about for a month, up to 10 postcodes. There's a regional one and a national.
Great bit of kit.
Anyway, he's pulling his leg. He's been around. Watch him, ladies and gentlemen. But I tell you what, he's good value for money, so we'll keep him because we like him. Right. Okay. Here we go. So in the last, let's look at new instructions. Here we go. And the first thing we can start off with red brick is that the market share was hovering around 15-20%, lots of spikes. There seems to have been some kind of drift off between 24 and then into 25. So market share's dropped there, hasn't it? Okay.
Huge, massive drop.
Okay, let's move on to Wilkins Vardy. Looks like they had a decent start in 2020, but it's been pretty bumbling along quite nicely at around 12 or 13%. But again, 2025, they've been hit. I wonder what's happened there. Okay, let's go to Hunters. Here we go. Okay, so very feast and famine there, isn't there? Cracking month, slow month, cracking month, slow month, cracking month, slow month. Yeah, quite spiky. Average price 222. What's Wilkins? 253. Red brick 271, and the average in the town, let's just remind ourselves, 243. So red brick are going to be more of a Marks and Spencer style brand in terms of their position in the market, whilst Wilkins Vardy very similar to the average, and Hunters 222, slightly below. Pinewood Properties. Okay, so it looks like you've got a market share on average of about 6-7%. Let's go look at Wards.
Yeah.
Going up.
Slight growth. Okay. Dales and Peaks. Pretty average. Purple Bricks. Drop. Blundell's. Okay. Reeds Rains. Weren't Blundell's bought out by one of the corporates? They were, weren't they, a few years ago?
Yeah, they're now, they're part of Countrywide for quite a few years.
Yes. Oh, was it
Big
that long?
Sheffield
Yeah.
agent for many years. Good agent, very good agent. But yeah, owned by Countrywide for many years now.
With it must, it's probably more than, it is pre-COVID. God, doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
Same time as they bought Hamptons, Chris.
All right. There you go. They paid lots of money for that one, didn't they?
I paid a few quid.
Few quid. I'm sure they found it at the back of Skipton found it at the back of the sofa. It'd be fine.
Do you know what? If only it had been Skipton in those days. That was the good old days of Hambros.
Right. Okay. Right. Reeds Rains. Okay. Okay. That's a franchise. I think that. Okay. I think is that the only franchise you haven't got, isn't it? At TPFG. Oh,
It is.
And Winkies. There you go. Frank Innes, they're part of Countrywide. Slight drop off there. William H. Brown. Okay. Strike, but that finished in 23. Okay. Botham's House.
Right, here we go. This is the one.
Look, right. This is going to be interesting because we're going to be looking at the. We're going to be looking at the year figure there. Only started in April. Look at that.
So hang on a minute. Were they trading before April?
Nope.
So they started in April.
Yeah.
They hit the ground more than running, a bit like Usain Bolt. Their market share went up to 25 odd percent. It took a little bit of a plateau, fair play, 20%. How have they built that market share so quickly, Chris?
I believe the guy that runs it used to be an agent in another agencies in that town, which does happen, doesn't it? But I don't know. It could be a number of things. Great marketing, it could be introductory fees. Well, let's do some investigating
Then
later.
there's great marketing, Chris, and then there's a magic dust to increase it that sharply. So there's something serious that's gone on there.
Well, we'll do see if we can do some homework. Okay, these are smaller numbers. We'll go down to 2020. There you go. Let's just go and have a look. Let's just have a quick look at the upper quartile. Now, there's not going to be many, so we're going to do it from something like £750,000. Let's just see if there is a bit of a market here. And it looks like Dales and Pete's and Red Brick. But again, look at the numbers. The numbers are not huge. Let's just do 500,000. Just see if that makes any difference.
Yeah.
So again, it looks like there's two main agents there. Right, let's get rid of that. Let's go and see what let's go and look at the last year. Okay, here we go. Okay,
Interesting.
Take your time. I just want you sitting on the edge of the bed.
there you go. Well done, hold on. Wow.
Yeah, do a little deep breath.
Hold on, I just need to gather my thoughts here a little bit, Chris.
Right, okay. I've never seen that.
No, I haven't. No,
Never.
in 36 years. So hold on. An agent started in April.
Yeah.
Property count 273, occupying just under 11% of the market across.
Well, I tell you what, if we did that from April, just what same and giggles, we will come back.
Has he booked something in? Because that's incredible. That's almost unachievable.
From an agent that's been going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
That's important. I'd love to know the story behind it because that is astronomical, to say the least.
Okay, well, we're going to see if you can sell them. Let's have a look, see how we get on.
Yeah, can we get rid of them?
Right, okay, here we go. So, look, the red line was Blundell's. Well, that's interesting. No, it wasn't Blundell's. Who's the red line? Wilkins Vardy. So Wilkins Vardy were already on the decline. What's
They
happened?
were going backwards there.
Okay. Yeah, who has House taken business off? Okay.
So Red Brick were at 16%.
Which is the yellow one.
So if you go on the yellow one, just start with the big boy.
There's House. Okay, right. So it starts in April, okay? So Red Brick.
So they've gone down from March, May. So 1st of April, their share went down to 10.38. Click back to March, Chris, for Red Brick a minute.
What, this March there?
Yeah, go back to March.
That's March.
9.9. So
okay,
they're at 14,
that's a spike. We're going to look at trends.
So 14.2.
Okay, but again, look at the trend. The trend was nearer 11 or 12.
So if you look from 24, you're trending, 11, bit of a dip there.
Okay, that how Red Brick have had a bad September, but I mean, we got it's not that bad. So who have taken? Where's House taken their business? Let's look at Wilkins Vardy. Remembering the line, so Wilkins Vardy were on the way down, but they've really been hit. Okay, let's go look at Hunters. They've been hit. Wards.
But they've been hit and come back, haven't they? Wards, Hunters.
Okay.
Blundell's.
I don't want that.
They've lowered and stayed lower.
Again, okay.
Dales and Peaks have struggled.
You do a little stand.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough old market, isn't it?
Do you know what? I've never seen such sharp ups and downs in any market for quite some time, Chris.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you watch the show, we do this every single week and have done for 3 years. So, yeah. Okay, well, we are going to look at the top agents' social media and just see if there's any clues. Because remember, success does leave
That
clues.
is, yeah. I mean, I think we could easily say they've taken something from everybody you see in that top 7 to 8 agents.
Yep.
If you overlay here on the graph the spike, which is still leaves me a little bit speechless, each one of those agents have contributed to it with their downside. Now, some have bounced back, but some have also stayed at that lower level now. So that hit has been permanent. So I think it's not just one. I think it's a mixture of the top several agents, Chris, here.
Can't disagree with you. Now, again, what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is that this is just measuring unit numbers. You know, um, if an agent's doing cheap fees, 0.5% or something, then they're going to attract people to you. And if you're on 1.5, then this doesn't take into account the fact is they have to sell 3 houses for your one. So, but again, it's just looking at the numbers. You all know what you charge, so you can apply that to your own figures. Okay, let's move on. I'm surprised there's no self-employed estate agents. There's no EXP.
Yopa, it's the first one.
Okay, yeah, it's not many. 32. Anyway, there's no EXP there, is there?
No, there's not. No.
There you go. Okay, let's move on and look at some stock levels. So we finished the end of August with 1,186, which again, if you compare that to 2022, 680, which means there's been approximately a 70% uplift in the number of properties for sale in Chesterfield. So again, it's a great stat that you could use to help you with your market.
Very powerful.
Yeah, okay. Okay, now let's move on to my favorite screen here. And this looks at okay, so there's a lot happening here. And again, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is where the power of data can really come into your own, okay? Because there is some absolute gold in this. Absolute gold. The thing is, though, it's like Aussie gold hunters, is that you've got millions of tons of stone in front of you. How do you find the little golden nuggets? And there is some pure gold in here, okay? Pure gold. With the right agents, it's just truly amazing. So I want you to totally ignore, ladies and gentlemen, this column here that says new instruction market share, and sale agreed percentage. I want you to totally ignore that, okay? Just so you're aware, so that's just so total instructions in the last year, 277, and the sale agreed 271, which means that is a ratio of 97.83. That doesn't mean that red bricks are selling 97.83, because that's just 271 expressed as a percentage of 277. So take that with a pinch of salt, because and this is where you've got to be really important, that house has only come to the party since April. So therefore their pipeline, probably nicer pipeline, but there won't be much coming through at the other end. So I will say is that the stats here for house are not as good as potentially they could be, because they've only been going 6 months. So I will preface that, but let's just have a look here. Right, Rob, you know what's coming, but for those that are not watching, they won't. Okay, this is where
the was only 5 months, isn't it? 5 months old.
Yeah, so we're going to take it with a pinch of salt, really have. So it'd be interesting probably to come back in a year's time and see what's happening here.
Mine's 147 in my pipeline after 5 months, though. That's some sort of world record.
It is. It is from a standing start.
World record. Never seen it before.
Right, here we go. Right, come on. Right, so in the last 12 months, you can see the numbers there. In the postcodes that we've mentioned here, let's look at red brick, for example. Okay, so 200. In what's left your books has been 314 properties, because you add up 251 and 63. So that's 314 properties have left red brick's books in the last 12 months in those postcodes, of which 251 have exchanged and 20.6 have withdrawn. This is the stuff you don't get paid on. This is the stuff you do get paid on. So therefore, red bricks, 79.94% of the homes that have left their books, they've been paid on. which means red bricks could say you have a 4 out of 5 chance of selling your home with us. The average in the town is 62. And look, William H. Brown at 48. So they've got less than 1 in 2 chance.
Yeah.
So if I was red bricks, I'd be saying you've got a 4 in 5 chance of moving. This is the power of this data, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful power. Whilst if I was up against William H. Brown, less than 1 in 2, and here's the proof. Martin and Co 64, Reeds Range 64, Blundell's at 46, Dales and Peak 77, Pinewoods at 76, Wards at 76, Hunters at 76, Wilkins Vardy at 72, and House at 57. But let's remember, it's early days for them, so you cannot use that stat against them. Okay, you can't, because it's not fair. Okay. Right, let's have a look at so again, fall through rates, the average is 19, red bricks is at 20. We did this show about 18 months ago. Their fall through rate was quite a lot lower than that. So I wonder what's happening there at red bricks, why your fall through rate's gone up. There's some nice low fall through rates there, aren't there?
They're very well, what they're putting in. It'd be interesting to see the days to exchange at some juncture, but those fall through rates of, you take them, Chris, all day long.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. So those your fall through rates, price changes, red bricks. Okay. You're price reducing nearly 7 out of 10 homes. The average is 50. That's high. Now, again, Raw House, you're at 16, but you've only been going 6 months. So your price reductions are not going to be great. You're not going to be high. So again, can't use that to your advantage. So you can see the numbers here. That would concern me at red bricks. That are they overvaluing? I don't know.
Also, Chris, the other stat that we may not look at today is when House opened up in April, there would have been an impact on the withdrawals from probably the top 5 or 6 agents, because you're not going to amass 260 listings in April, sell 147 of them by October without denting and withdrawing. These aren't all new instructions. They would have been on the market already. Okay. So these withdrawal rates in somewhere would have been impacted by the rise of House.
Yeah, another stat. Okay, you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, the average time to sell, which is just here. We will look at that in a second. Now, the thing I would say about red bricks is that their price changes at 68, but remember their exchange level is really high, one of the best, if not the best. So what that normally means, Rob, is this: they're taking them on and price reducing them really quickly to get them sold. That's I suspect is what is happening. Okay. That's what that normally means. Normally, if you have a high price change and a low exchange, that means that you're taking on overpriced properties, but you're not shifting them, and then they fester and then they withdraw. Yeah. If you have a high price change, but you do end up selling and exchanging them, that means you're working your stock. So what I would say is red brick are working their stock.
Very much so. Yeah, they're on the tools.
Good stuff. Okay, let's move on. Anything there before we move on to the next one?
No, really on their tools. But I think you can see some real quality agents. Obviously, I've got a bias towards Hunters and Martin & Co. But in that marketplace, looking after their stock, taking on good volumes, and a number of the agents there. So I think that's a really good, healthy marketplace. And the only one thing, and I sound like a broken record, is some of these numbers I jump off the page.
Right. Good. Again, you can see, ladies and gentlemen, why, don't get me wrong, big fan of Rightmove Plus, but this isn't a different league. Right, let's move on. So, this is the overvaluing screen. So what happens is this: the agent, the 20 EA look at all of your exchanges, okay, that have taken place in the last 2 months. Okay, they don't actually publish the number of exchanges, although remember, we actually have seen them. We have seen them on the previous screen. Okay, they do. The order that they put them in is just new instructions, because you have to put it in some order, and again, you normally the biggest at the top. But that's just putting the big ones at the top. Right, let's move on. So the orange line here is this: when your property came on the market, This is only for the exchanged properties. This is not the stuff you put on the market. This is only the properties that have exchanged in the last 2 years. Step one is when the house came on the market, they look at your asking price and they compare that to what they think the house is worth with their AVM model, automated valuation model, like a ballpark figure. So you can see here on average, red brick put their property on average 1.43% above what the AVM model is. The one that obviously everyone's roughly the same, about 1.1 to 1.5. The one that sticks out is house. But again, ladies and gentlemen, the number of exchanges is in single digits. And if the properties come on the market and sold really quickly, it's probably sold because it was a damn good price, which means the overvaluing stat is going to be minimal at all because it sold really quickly. So it wouldn't be overvalued. So you've got to take that with a pinch of salt. And then what price did you achieve over the original asking price? And red brick's got an average 3.19% less than the original asking price, Wilkins Vardy 5.49, and Hunters at 4.99, and so on and so forth. A lot of people don't like its percentages, so therefore, if everyone put on a £250,000 house, you can see the number that they would achieve. So again, if red bricks were going up against Wilkins Vardy, you would take their figure off your figure. So therefore, red brick could safely say is that on average, Mrs. Miggins, we will achieve for you £5,930 more for your home than Wilkins Vardy. That's powerful stuff to say, isn't it?
Big stat, especially if you're sitting somewhere like Dow's and Peaks. You're trading very well against your asking price. You're going in very transparently. Do you know what, though, Chris? I'm really intrigued to see this in 12 months' time, because I think there's a big mover here that's going to command maybe a lot of this page.
Well, again, has he come on the market, done cheap fees, buying the stock in, not selling, but then he is selling them, but then they could fall through. Again, it's all supposition.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all supposition, right? Okay.
But there's a story here to tell on this page.
Maybe we can look at
that. It's a very good story for people.
We must remember, like next autumn, when you do come back on the show, you'll be coming on the show plenty of times for then. I think we'll go back to Chesterfield and have a look.
Oh, definitely. Look forward to that.
Okay, so what's this screen here? Takes on average 83 days to find a buyer, new instruction to sale agreed, and 109 days from sale agreed to completion. And again, we just hover over here. So again, house 61 days from new instruction. So here we go. 28 days from new instruction to sale agreed, and 61 days from sale agreed to completion. But again, must take that with a pinch of salt. We've only had a handful of exchanges through. So again, that's going to be, we're not comparing apples with apples, but you can see here, red brick take on average 101 days. Who are the other bigger? Wilkins 92 days, Hunters 76 days, and Ward's 99 days. And again, it looks like the sales, the time it takes on sale agreed is roughly the same, about 120, 108. Red brick's at 108. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, they're all much of a muchness. Okay, right. Right, Toby. I'll tell you what we'll do before we go and have a final look at the lettings is, shall we go and have a look at their marketing?
Think so. Let's have a look at the social media, Chris.
Here we go. Okay, let's start off with House Homes, and we've got a nice picture of the team there. Nice people there. Who we got here? Okay. Oh, look, it looks like we've had a marriage. That's nice. Good. Listing. Listing. Please tell me.
Got a modern feel to the front office there. Looked fairly new, clean lines. Looks professional.
Hush not, child.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that. Okay, we got any? Where do you stand on present? Here, come on, give me some presenter-led video call. Okay, at least they're doing video, but it's all listings, like Rightmove with the word Facebook at the top.
It's okay. Yeah.
No, boring.
Not a lot.
Absolutely.
To be honest, though, Chris, there's not a lot wrong with that.
Hey, it's just full of listings. All right, there you go. I am criticising here, but again, you can do it. But again, hold on a second. I'm in the game of trying to attract landlords and vendors.
Exactly.
Okay,
It's different.
and so therefore, I think we can clearly here say is that house don't have got. I've obviously solved that problem, but it hasn't answered us the question, mate. Is this what the hell are they doing?
Exactly. But think about it. Why is their Facebook full of listings? Because within 5 months they put 263 on the market, which is a world record.
Yeah,
They've
go on,
got
I'll give you
advertising
that.
somehow.
Let's just go and see if they're running any Facebook adverts that might answer the questions. Okay, here we go. It's not running any ads.
Blimey.
Bloody hell.
There's a client for you there, Chris, surely. To see what your next call might be.
I think the other agents need my help to go and catch this lot up. Right, let's move on. Red Brick. So they looks like they've combined their Sheffield and Chesterfield offices. Where do you stand on multiple location, one Facebook feed or multiples?
I'm not a big fan of it, Chris.
What, multiple locations?
I like multiple locations, but I don't like them all in one. I like two physical locations merged into one. It erodes what you've got in either one.
Okay, again, lovely photographs, but falling really into the trap here of just we're in a people business, aren't we?
Yeah, and I get your point, and I do stand correct. Stand on that point that it is very samey, but in terms of my eye is different to yours. I'm looking at the quality of the presentation, which is not bad.
Well, don't get me wrong, they're cracking
content,
photographs.
you're right, but in terms of I'm a vendor, I want to see my house. That's as good as it gets. That's not bad at all, Chris.
All right, we agree to disagree on that one. Oh, yeah, it's good photos, but again, okay, let's move on. Wilkins Vardy.
Very much the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Big opportunity somewhere to be different.
Okay, let's just have a quick look at Hunters.
Probably the best one.
Okay, I like that.
Decent agent. It's good.
Tell you what, let me show you what I think is good. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Give me 1 second.
this is the old one. Hold on.
Minimum.
Here we go. She's doing property market updates.
Welcome to your August market update. This month we've seen some interest we saw last year and also quieter than July when 106 homes sold. Terraced homes were by far the most popular.
Okay, here's another one.
Hello, I'm Michelle and I'm back with your March 2025 property market update for Lancaster and Morecambe.
Because again,
It's a quick overview of what's really happening out there.
When you go to a party and someone finds out you're an estate agent, they always ask you they ask you a question and the same questions, always the same 4 words. What are the magic words?
What's the market doing?
How's the market? Street of the week.
Welcome to this week. This gives the street its unique charm
Very
and
good.
of course
Local market content. Yeah, you can put your listings on. Okay, here we go.
Hi, it's Cassie from Jenny Gallagher Estate Agents, and I'm here.
Look, you can put your listings on. I like that. Look, here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Property Perspective.
There's a reason why these won the best estate agents at EA Masters 2 years in a row.
And I think you get a free gilet if you work there.
You do. It's the law. Look, first time buyers, interest rates, 350
Very
quid.
good.
This
Very
is,
good.
yeah. There you go. Anyway, there you go. We're just giving some feedback. Let's move on and look at the lettings. Okay.
They're not in Chesterfield. That's where it
What's that?
matters.
Right, we're back. They're not. So obviously, gilets. You don't get gilets in Chesterfield, I don't think. Okay. Well, you probably do because it's the Dales, isn't it? Anyway, let's moving on. Open rent. There you go. Let's look at open rent. So they've been hovering around 10, which is actually lower than the national average. Okay.
Yes.
Pinewood
Good.
properties
Hunter's good.
dropping. Hunters steady. Red brick.
Ooh.
Okay. Frank Innes. Blundell's. Roy Peters. So it looks like you've not been affected by open rent as much as most locations because they're
No.
around 20%. Roy Peters, Lime Living, like that name. Martin and Co, some of your lot. Botham's, Mitchell Slaney,
Fair enough.
Wilkinson, Vardy. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you can judge how many properties there are in an agent's portfolio by the number of properties that come on the market. And there is actually a formula depending on where you are in the country or and also whether you're a university city or down or not. And you can tell you exactly how many properties they have in a portfolio. Okay. Yeah, it's all. Oh, look at this. This is my favorite name. Suits you, sir. Suits you lettings and management services. Great name. Great name. Okay, let's leave it at that. Okay.
Interesting though, Chris, that open rent not such a domination as we've seen in other areas. There's
Yes.
some really good agents, your red bricks, your hunters, your pinewood. But interestingly, house at the moment haven't gone into the lettings market. They're a solely sales agent. They've got enough on, but it'd be interesting to see in a year's time, from an asset perspective, whether they've moved across into lettings.
Well, as the blind man says, we shall see. Right. Final words from you, mate.
Look, I think the UK market, firstly, Chris, I think we're in for a very, very big Q4. But again, the biggest thing is now starting to target what 26 looks like. Lots going on in the world, but actually the numbers don't lie. This is a very good time at the moment. But again, to make sure that you're talking to your vendors, you're educating your vendors for what's about to come over the hill. We've talked a lot about renters' rights, etc. But from a sales point of view, big end to the year. But January first Q's got to be won. And the final thing I'd say is, for me, I think if we look at Chesterfield, that's probably the best competition I've seen in all the shows I've done with you. Some really good standout agents, and I would love to know the story of the new boys in town. See if I can steal any of the practices. But Chris, thank you for having me on. A really good in depth, and certainly a huge benefit to me and anyone watching.
Thank you, Toby, for your time today. Exceptional as always. I know you're an hour and a half out your busy diary. It is very much appreciated. Thank you for watching. If you're a Chesterfield estate agent, obviously house don't need my help, but if you're a Chesterfield estate agent,
Give him a call.
And you want to know how I would beat House, that's nothing against you, House, because you come across really well, but it looks like you don't need my help. If anyone needs any help on how I would stop the rot and actually grow my sales business, then please do give me a call. My colleague Ricky has been communicating with your offices, and you can send me via email. But I have proven techniques that can turn that around if that's what you want. If you don't, just ignore me. Anyway, without further ado, thank you for your time today, Toby. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week for the Stat Show Week 38.
Thank you, Chris.